Hey guys, hello from Mr. Dean out of quarantine land. Hope you guys are doing really well. Hopefully you are having fun at home and aren't going too crazy just yet. We are starting our second kind of real life unit here. We just did a whole bunch of just kind of drawing exercises, and now we're going to put sort of the skills that we learned there to better use and kind of directing them into learning how to draw figures, learning how to draw people. This is going to be a really fun unit. It's going to be some work, which I think is to be expected, but it's also going to be a lot of fun. Drawing people is kind of one of my favorite sorts of things to draw. It's something that I learned when I was a kid, and I still use it all the time in my own work. You can see I got a painting behind me here of a person, right? That's kind of what I draw and paint. So this is our first video. This is learning to draw the masculine body, okay? So we'll get right into it right away. All right, so we're gonna get going drawing bodies today. This is gonna be kind of an introductory course, introductory lesson, for drawing people. I'm really excited about this. Drawing figures and drawing people is kind of one of my favorite things to draw and to paint and stuff. So I hope that you guys enjoyed as much as I enjoyed as well. So yeah, we'll get started here. So to begin, what you're always going to want to do is you're going to want to start with drawing a head. The head is going to be our basic measurement whenever we draw a body. So what I've done here is I've made a bunch of lines on my page, and I'm going to use this kind of like a ruler. I made mine about 2 centimeters long, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines, or 8 spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark those off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means we're going to be able to fit 8. Basically, if we had 8 heads and stacked them one on top of each other, they would fit perfectly down like this. A body, whether we're drawing a masculine body or a feminine body, they generally tend to be about 8 heads tall, if that makes sense. So there's, if you were to chop off your head right at the chin and stack it 8 times, it would basically be your height. So that's kind of a standard way to measure bodies and draw bodies. So you guys can go ahead, and I would draw a bunch of lines just like this. You can do just small ones if you want. You don't have to draw them all the way across. I drew them all the way across just for this first lesson, just so you guys get an idea of where you need to put stuff. As you get better at it, it'll become easier. So go ahead and draw 8 spaces, so that's a total of 9 lines. And go ahead and pause this video if you need to catch up while you do that, and then resume when you're ready. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to start by drawing a head in this first section, because our heads are all going to be roughly the same size, right? So I'm just going to draw kind of an upside down egg-shaped head. It's okay if it goes slightly below or slightly above. Again, these are guidelines, right? It's not a strict measurement, but you want to kind of get it sort of around that area there. Once you've got that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the spine. Basically what we're doing, guys, is we're going to be starting by drawing a skeleton. Okay, so the skeleton is going to be what we basically draw our entire body on, right? Just like your body, the frame of your body is a skeleton, bones. We're going to start by basically drawing bones. Okay, so I'm going to draw the spine, and I'm going to start from basically the chin. It's going to go all the way down till about the bottom of the 4th head, right? The 4th space. Okay, someplace around there. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw the shoulder line. Okay. So what that means is I'm going to draw, the shoulder lines up to about 1/3 below that first head there. Okay, so if I divide this section into 3, trace it across, right around here is where those shoulders are going to line up. You can draw them straight across, or whatever. We won't put it in the shoulders yet, just kind of get a mark in there, just so you know where stuff's going to go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the rib cage. Now the rib cage is basically like an upside down egg. Okay, so basically it's going to fit. We're going to draw it, and it's going to be slightly above our shoulder line. If you feel around beside your neck, you'll notice that there's a bunch of muscles that kind of go up leading into the neck. This is what those are going to become eventually. Now, when I mentioned that we measure using heads, we can also measure using heads going side to side as well. So I'm going to try and make, basically this can be a measurement as well, from here to here, as well as here to here. Okay, so my rib cage is going to be approximately 2 heads wide. So if I were to take the distance here and put it beside here, it's going to be about that wide, okay? And I'm going to go down to the bottom of the third section there. Something like this. It's roughly egg shaped, so that means it's going to be thicker at the top than it is at the bottom. But it should look something kind of like that. Okay. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the hips. This is basically our frame of our entire body here that I'm drawing, right? The torso. And actually this should be about 3 heads wide, roughly, right? If you have one here, one in the middle, and one on to either side, it should be about 3. So I'm about right. That looks about right. The hips, however, need to be about 2 heads wide. So they'll be a little bit more narrow than the shoulders. Okay, and this, for the hips, I'm going to draw basically a rectangle. And it's just going to go up like this. And it's going to go up to about roughly 1/3 of the way, or 2/3 of the way up on section number 4. Something like that. It's starting to look something like a skeleton, right? This is what a hip would look like. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw, whenever we draw limbs, whenever we have a joint, we're going to put a circle where that joint is, right? So joints would be like your shoulders, your elbows, your ankles, your knees, even your hips. You can have a circle in those areas. And I'm going to draw it quite large. The reason I'm going to draw this so large, and here we can start to kind of figure out that our shoulders are going to be wider, right? So you can see how I'm widening out the shoulder area from the rib cage. So you have a muscle there. And what I'm going to do eventually is I'm going to turn this circle into a muscle, right? That's going to be your shoulder muscle right there. So it's not perfectly circle, it's kind of oval shaped, but that's sort of what it's going to start to look like. Okay, so this is going to be the basis of our arms. Now, where the arm goes down to for our bicep area, that kind of like our upper arm, I'm going to draw a bone, basically like a stick here, for our arm bone, and our elbow is going to land basically right on the bottom of this third area. I'm going to draw a circle there, and it's going to be, make sure that it's smaller than this one, right? Whenever you draw limbs, they're going to get smaller the longer they get, right? Your shoulder is bigger than your elbow, and your elbow is bigger than your wrist. So they're going to be consecutively smaller. I'm going to do the other arm at the same time. Something like this. Another note is make sure you guys are going to be drawing lightly during this time. We want to make sure that we have the ability to erase our marks as we make them. I'm gonna leave the arms for now. And I'm gonna go down to the legs now. Now I'm gonna go right from the corner of the hips. And if you want, you can draw a circle here, that's fine. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but that's up to you. And I'm gonna draw a circle at the bottom of section number 6, and that's, if it's resting basically right on that line, just like that, that's where our knees are gonna go. Now, often when you draw or when you're standing, your legs are actually, even though they're perfectly straight down, or your, like say your knees are touching, say, they're actually slightly at an angle. The way the bones work inside your body is that they're actually going in, right? Your hips are quite wide. And then we can extend this leg all the way down to the bottom. And it's okay if it's a bit of an angle, that's all right. That's how your bones work. Now our heels are gonna rest basically right on the bottom of section number 8, okay? And remember, make sure these are a little bit smaller than they were, or sorry, than the knees, something like that. That's fine. Now I'm gonna go back up to my arms here, and if you guys stand up, you'll notice that your arms reach down past your crotch, and they kind of go partly down your side of your legs, right? So they're a little bit longer than you think they are. They're not going to end right here. That would look a little goofy. You'd have very little, tiny little T-Rex arms. We don't want that. Basically, our wrist is going to start basically right underneath section number 4, the top of section number 5. That's where our wrist is going to go. Okay, so that's this part right here. Okay, not the whole hand, but the wrist. Okay, and I do that on both sides. And I'm going to draw in the hand as well. Now the hand is going to be a little bit bigger. It's not going to quite go all the way down. Well, if you had your fingers extended, they would go down to about the bottom of number 6, or bottom of number 5. Something like that. So I'm just going to draw kind of little triangular shapes, something like that. Doesn't really matter. But that's basically what your skeleton should look like, okay? So right now what we've got here is we've got basically a perfect first step to our drawing. The next part, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start putting basically flesh on this figure, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start connecting areas. So I'm gonna draw on the neck. I'm going to start putting in areas of flesh on the arms. And all I'm doing is I'm just connecting the outside of the circles. So see, I'm just kind of going in like that. I'm just connecting the dots essentially. The legs, your legs have to be thick. Okay, and I'm going to go right into the middle. Don't give your figure these kind of little skinny little legs, right? Make sure they have muscle, right? Your legs are your most powerful part of your muscles in your body, right? All the way up into the ribs as well. If you want, you can kind of go in a little bit too. That's okay. Something like this. Oh, forgot this part here. And if you want as well, guys, you can also have, start putting in like muscles at this point as well. So keep in mind like the shape of the body as you do it, right? So like, for instance, your arms aren't just like this, right? They're not just skinny little lines. They have, it's kind of a muscle closer to the elbow, and then it kind of gets skinnier as it gets closer to the wrist. So you can kind of even already start to think about putting those sorts of muscles and things in. Same with your shins and your calves down to the bottom here. So you're going to want to have kind of a curved area here. And the inside of the calf, the bottom of the leg, is actually quite flat. There's kind of a bit that pokes out kind of on the outside, but inside is pretty flat. And you can also put in some feet as well. So I'm just going to kind of draw kind of some feet, something like that, whatever. Not really worried too much about it right at this point. And that's basically stage 2, is just filling in that area really quick, really fast. Yeah, we can go from there. Now what we're going to try and do, guys, is we're going to erase all of our guidelines. So I'm just going to take my eraser. Remember, guys, if you need to pause it just to catch up, feel free. I'm going to erase all my guidelines. So all the circles, all the lines, until we're left with just a figure. Erase the lines across as well if you want. Right, those background lines that we drew in at the very beginning. Get rid of all those. So you should be left with something that looks something like that. It's got this funny little hat here. I'm gonna get rid of that too. Okay. Now what we can do is we can start putting in the details. Now, if you don't want to draw a naked person, that's okay. We won't. What we're going to do is we'll draw a superhero. We'll put basically spandex on this figure. So let's say this person is Spider-Man. Why not? We're still going to draw all the muscle groups and stuff, but we won't worry about kind of all the little bits and pieces. So I'm just going to start rounding out and putting some muscles on, right? So you got big shoulder muscles. He's got something like this. He's got a big bicep, and it looks like his arm is kind of like going in a little bit. So I'll put the bicep on this side of him. Something like that. Now at this point, guys, you can start drawing a little darker. I'm drawing a little bit too dark, but I'm hoping that's just so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Most of the time when you guys are drawing figures, you want to draw lightly. So it might be a good idea for you guys when you're doing these intro exercises to use a 2H. Do something like that. We'll give him a bit of a chest. Pectoral muscles. Got a clavicle here. Make sure you put that in there, that collarbone. Move on to the other side. A lot of the time when I'm drawing muscles, I'm actually just drawing ovals. So you'll see I just kind of drew this kind of ellipse, elongated oval shape. That's just a really quick and easy way to get the form of a muscle before committing to any one thing, okay? Same thing down here. Something like that. All right, so we gotta have some muscles. Get the rib cage in there. If you feel your rib cage, you'll notice that it's kind of this pointy sort of an area here. It's flattish on the top, and then it kind of arcs down. Now, if you also stand up, this is kind of a cool little thing. If you put your elbow next to your side, and stand up, you'll notice that your elbow lines up perfectly with your belly button. So if we were to draw this person without a shirt on, he would have a belly button right where that elbow line is, right? So someplace right in there. It's just kind of a cool little thing. If you want to put some abs in there, it's fine. We're gonna put webs on him here in a minute, so don't go too crazy. Hips. So the way the hips work is they kind of flare out a little bit. Getting a little bit too dark here, it looks like. Lighten that up. So he kind of comes out here, and then it kind of flares out a little bit, right? You don't want to just have no hips. If you draw like a classic superhero, if you look at like the comic books, you'll notice that all these guys basically have no hips. We're trying to draw real people here. Arc it out and in. basically a C shape here. This whole side is basically an elongated S. Same thing on this side, only the other way. Till it gets to about where the knee is. And then that's the skinniest part of that part of the leg. Right, then it flares out again for the shin. Right on top of your circle for your knee, you're gonna want to put a kind of a U-shaped. You don't have to do the bottom, but kind of these two lines. That's gonna make up your kneecap. Put some muscles in there. Those are just lines. We'll worry about more anatomy stuff a little bit later on, but you can just kind of put some lines in there right now for muscles. I'm gonna draw some lines up, and it's gonna meet up just below the bottom of line number 4, top of 5. And you're gonna kind of put in something like that. Right where the crotch is there, that's where your legs meet. Okay, we'll finish up our bottom of our legs. Make sure you put some ankles in there. I just put kind of like a little, basically a little area like this, right? This little bump where your ankles are. Something like that. And then his feet, I'm not gonna worry about this too much. Same with the hands. If you wanna put in a little bit more of a thumb or something, don't worry about drawing every single little finger. At this point, we're just starting to get the idea of where stuff needs to go. Okay, that's basically the figure. Let's put some webs on him. Spider-Man's kind of got these triangular shaped eyes. I'm not going to draw all the webs, but there's kind of these, something like this. This kind of pointy belt, and then his costume goes all the way up and then all the way down along his arms, which turn into his gloves. Same thing on the other side, turn into the gloves, and he's got boots, and he's got a little spider on his chest. Something like that. And there you have it. There's a really quick masculine figure that turned into Spider-Man. So yeah, that's how you draw a masculine figure. I'm gonna post right away a tutorial on how to draw feminine figures as well. So you can check that out when you are ready to go.